Chapter 12. The Ink That Binds. Nathan sat in the dim glow of his desk lamp, staring at the pages before him. Ink bled into the paper, twisting, changing. He wasn't writing anymore. He was witnessing. His own words turned against him, reshaping the world he had thought he commanded. He clenched his fists. Felix was still out there, beyond his grasp, beyond his control. And Anna had grown into something even stranger. Nathan reached for the old leather-bound journal beside him. It was the original draft, the foundation of Inkbound. He flipped through the pages, running his fingers over the embossed lettering. He had once been their god, their creator. Now he was a prisoner to their will. With a deep breath, he pressed his pen to the paper and wrote. Felix stood in the ruined city, unaware that his fate had already been sealed. The words shimmered, took hold. The ink crawled like veins through the fibers of reality. Far away, Felix felt the shift. He stumbled forward, his vision blurring as unseen force tugged at his limbs. He fell to his knees, gasping. He had felt Nathan's influence before, but never like this. Anna appeared beside him, gripping his shoulder. "What's happening to you?" Felix clenched his teeth. "Nathan, he has found a way to tighten his grip." She looked toward the distant skyline, where the forces had begun to gather. The air around them grew heavier. The ink in Felix's veins burned. Anna's eyes darkened with understanding. "Then we need to strike before he writes us out of existence." Chapter 13. Between the Lines. Felix wandered the outskirts of the city, where the ink had yet to spread. Here the sky still looked real, untainted by Nathan's revisions. He reached out, his fingers grazing the walls of an abandoned house, the texture strangely smooth, like the surface of a printed page. Anna watched him from a distance. She had always been the fighter, the rebel, the one pushing forward. But Felix was different. He felt everything more deeply, questioned things that shouldn't be questioned. "You've been quiet," Anna said, stepping closer. Felix exhaled slowly. "It's just... What if I'm wrong?" She frowned. "About what?" Felix turned to face her, his expression raw. "What if Nathan should control this world? What if we're just a mistake? Characters who were never meant to think, to question, to be anything more than what we were written to be." Anna crossed her arms. "You really think that?" He shook his head. "I don't know anymore." Anna took his hand, pressing it against his chest. "Do you feel that?" Felix nodded. "That's not ink. That's something real." He looked into her eyes, searching for certainty, but all he saw was the same fear that clawed at him. Behind them, the city shuddered. Nathan was writing again. They were running out of time. Chapter 14. The Unwritten War. Nathan's world had always existed within the confines of paper and ink, but now the lines were breaking. Felix and Anna had gone into hiding, deeper into the parts of the city where Nathan's influence weakened. Here, buildings stood half-formed, their structures caught between imagination and reality. Felix had become something of a castaway. He scavenged for supplies, food that wasn't real, shelter that dissolved if he stayed too long. The air smelled of forgotten paragraphs, of half-written ideas. Anna sat near the remnants of an old library, flipping through books that have never been finished. "We need a plan," she said. Felix looked out over the strange landscape. "Nathan won't stop until he erases us." Anna closed the book in her hands. "Then we need to take the pen from him." Felix turned to her. "You mean rewrite him?" She nodded. "He made us, Felix. Maybe it is time we return the favor." A low wind rustled through the city, carrying whispers of unfinished stories. Felix tightened his grips on the book in his hands. If they wanted to survive, they needed to become more than just characters. They needed to become authors. Chapter 15. The final rewrite. The city had become a battlefield of ink and shadow. The enforcers moved like specters, their presence stretching across rooftops and alleyways. The sky had turned into a parchment of shifting words, erasing and rewriting itself as Nathan desperately tried to regain control. Felix and Anna stood at the heart of it all. The old cathedral, the place where Nathan had first written their story, loomed there before them, its doors swinging open as if inviting them inside. Nathan was waiting. They stepped forward cautiously, their footsteps echoing against the hollow floor. Candles flickered, casting long, shifting shadows on the wall. At the far end of the room, Nathan sat behind a massive desk, his book open, his pen poised above the page. Felix stepped forward. "This ends tonight!" Nathan didn't look up. "You think you can win?" Anna drew a breath. "We don't have to win. We just have to write something new." Nathan's hand twitched, and suddenly ink spilled from the walls, forming twisted shapes, creatures, words given monstrous form. Felix reached into his coat and pulled out a book. One he had found in the ruins, one with blank pages. Nathan's eyes flickered to it, his face paling. Felix opened the book. "If you can write, so can I." Nathan lunged forward, but it was too late. Felix pressed the pen to the paper, and with one final stroke, the world had changed. Chapter 16. The rewritten code. The world was no longer Nathan's to control. Felix could feel it in the way the streets bent beneath his feet, the way the air hummed with potential. This was his story now, his reality. Nathan stood at the center of the shifting world, staring at the pages in Felix's hands. His hands trembled, his control slipping. He had once been the architect, the creator, but now he was merely a character, a puppet in Felix's rebellion. Felix ran his fingers over the ink-stained pages. They shimmered, bending to his will. The rules of the world had changed. He wasn't just rewriting sentences, he was rewriting the very laws of existence. He smirked. You feel that, Nathan? That's the weight of the story pressing down on you. The realization that you're not the one holding the pen anymore. Nathan clenched his fists. You have no idea what you're doing. Felix tilted his head. Don't I? You wrote us into this world. You gave us thoughts, emotions, desires. You made us real. And now I'm just taking it a step further. Nathan shook his head. You don't understand what happens when the world loses its author. Felix raised an eyebrow, enlightening me. Nathan took a step closer, his voice low. A story without an author is chaos. It unravels. You can play God for a moment, but the ink will turn on you. The words will rebel against you. Felix smiled. Then I guess I have to rewrite the rules. With a flick of his wrist, the city around them began to change. Buildings warped, their structures reshaping at his commands. The enforcers, Nathan's enforcers, fell to their knees, their bodies glitching like corrupted text. Felix turned back to Nathan. You made a world where control was everything, where you dictated every move. But I think it's time for something new. Nathan's breathing was unsteady. You can't just rewrite reality. Felix took a step forward, holding up the blank book in his hands. Watch me. The ink spread from his fingertips, rewriting the sky, the streets, and the air itself. The laws of Nathan's world dissolved. The story had a new author, and it was just only the beginning. Chapter 17. The ink bleeds through. Nathan woke up gasping. His heart pounded in his chest, his hands clutching at the sheets as if they would anchor him to reality. But something was wrong. The world felt off. He staggered to his desk, the typewriter sitting exactly where he had left it. The pages were there, neatly stacked, filled with the words he had written. But something new had appeared. Words he didn't recognize, words he hadn't written. His hands trembled as he picked up the top page. The ink spread from his fingertips, rewriting the sky, the streets, the air itself. The laws of Nathan's world dissolved. The story had a new author. Nathan's breath caught in his throat. This was impossible. A sharp knock on the door made him jump. He turned, pulse hammering. The sound wasn't loud, but it carried a strange weight. He hesitated, then stepped forward, his fingers curling around the doorknob. He twisted it slowly, pulling the door open. Outside stood a man in a black coat. He had sharp features, piercing eyes, and a smirk that sent a chill down Nathan's spine. Felix. Nathan's mind reeled. Felix wasn't real. He was a character, a creation of his own mind. He wasn't supposed to exist here. Felix stepped forward, brushing past him into the apartment, his fingers tracing over the typewriter like an old friend. You really should be more careful with your words, Nathan, he said, his voice smooth and knowing. You never know who might be listening. Nathan swallowed hard. This isn't possible. Felix chuckled, leaning against the desk. Oh, but it is. You made me real, Nathan, and now I get to return the favor. Nathan backed away. What do you mean? What do you mean? Felix picked up a blank sheet of paper and twirled it between his fingers. I'm writing now, and whatever I write happens here. Felix grinned. Let's see how you like being the character for a change. Nathan rushed forward, trying to grab the paper, to stop Felix from writing, but the moment his fingers touched the page, a searing pain shot through his body. He collapsed to his knees, gasping for breath. Felix crouched beside him, his voice soft. Relax, Nathan. This is just the beginning. The room around them flickered. The walls warped. The typewriter twisted into something unfamiliar. The world was changing. Felix held up the page, ink dripping from his fingertips. Nathan barely had time to scream before the words swallowed him whole. To be continued. Take care. Bye-bye.